Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. Today I wanted to dedicate a video to one of my heroes, Malcolm X. As many of you know, on May 19th of this year, if he were still alive, he would have become 100 years old. And yet his messages still hold true to this day. Also, another honorable mention is his wife, Betty Shabazz, who was born on May 28th, 1934. So it was definitely, as many of you guys know, younger than he was. Okay? So I wanted to talk about the last home that he lived in. As many of you know, he was here in New York. The address was 2311 97th Street in East Elmhurst, Queens. This particular home was built in 1924. It is a single family home that is now worth anywhere between $950,000 to $1.4 million. Now, in doing my research, I realized that they didn't actually own that home. The home was actually owned by the Nation of Islam, and the family moved into that home back in 1960. Okay. Now, the exact financial arrangements, the lease, and what have you, unfortunately, I was not able to gather that particular information, but I'm going to share with you a few more things and then get into the heart of the lesson, okay? So, as many of you know, back in 1964, Malcolm X split from the Nation of Islam because of certain things that he had discovered. So later on, the Nation of Islam actually ordered Malcolm X and his family to vacate the home. Malcolm X refused, arguing that he had the right to live there, given that he made so many sacrifices for the organization, which of course grew the organization to outstanding numbers. All right. So what happened? The nation sued to repossess the East Elmhurst residence. The home later was firebombed at 2:35 a.m., a week before his assassination. Now, the family did leave the home 4 days after the bombing, which is definitely understandable, especially since then, at that time, he had 4 daughters, and the wife, remember, she was pregnant. I think she was pregnant with the twins at that particular time. Now, the Nation of Islam, who ordered he be evicted from the home, their case actually never really fully resolved. Why? Because, unfortunately, of Malcolm X's assassination. Malcolm X did put in for an appeal, which was actually supposed to come into review February 21st, 1965, which is the same day he was murdered. Now, many, many years later, there was a member of the Nation of Islam that confirmed that there was involvement. They were involved in the firebombing. I'm not sure that's, because the reason why I'm not sure about it is because to this day, no one has been charged with the crime in connection with the firebombing of his house or their house. Even with the strong suspicions and the confirmation and everything, no arrests were made. The other thing, too, that I wasn't able to get information on was the insurance. You see, if you bomb your house, the insurance people are not really all that apt to give you any kind of payout. So in my mind, which, I know everybody doesn't think like me. I know it's not, always logical. It kind of is like, okay, well, why would you bomb your own house? Even if you have squatters, even if you have tenants there that's not paying you rent. By the way, I'm not sure if he paid rent. I'm not sure if that was part of the agreement or not. But anyway, I just, like, that is the question mark for me. Okay, because especially back in 1965, and hell, we don't even really need to go back there. There is racial discrimination when it comes to insurance, homeowners insurance. So that's why I'm saying to myself, would they really do that to themselves? Or would it be that there was like one or two loose cannons within the organization that did it, as opposed to, let's say, saying that the whole nation, like the whole religion, actually came after him in that way? Okay, so that's the question. All right, I'm not passing judgment. Well, maybe in a way I am passing judgment. Again, because it goes back to the insurance. All right, so needless to say, the Nation of Islam owned that house until 1987, and then they sold it. And right now, it is presently owned privately. So, and no, it is not owned by anyone who is, from my knowledge, that is related to Malcolm X. Okay, now, this brings me to the lesson, all right? Some of you probably are wondering, because you may know that, yes, religious organizations from time to time, many of them do own property. That's number one. Not just mosques, but churches, synagogues, etc. And you might be wondering, well, what are their rights? Okay, their rights in the state of New York is the same as a regular landlord rights. If they own the home and a former leader of theirs is residing there, they can initiate eviction proceedings through the court, whether or not they charge that leader rent or not. Again, everything goes back to the contract. What was in the contract? Was there even a contract? You know, one could argue, or one could say that if it was stated in the contract that living there was based on your employment relationship with the church, with the mosque, with the synagogue, if that was specifically spelled out in the lease, then yes, they could recover that property and take it back, because it would be considered a breach of occupancy at that particular moment, even if they never collected rent from the person. Okay, and also, if that property was deemed, written somewhere, that this was for organizational purposes only, and yes, you can deem it for organizational purposes and have somebody like a leader live there. If that's the case, then yes, a religious organization can, whether they paid rent or they did not pay rent, whether rent was part of the package or it was not part of the package, they can take that person to court and they can evict that person from the premises. So guys, I'm going to turn this around on you, and I'd like to know what your thoughts or opinions are. Do you think in this particular case, given the information that we have, that we know, which is somewhat limited, do you think that Malcolm X should have stayed in that house after he broke away from the Nation of Islam? Or do you feel that he should have cut ties across the board? And I want to just also say one other thing, and I could be wrong about this, but I have seen videos on YouTube where Malcolm X actually apologized to Elijah Muhammad. that there was some sort of peace or truce. Of course, the eviction probably would have flipped that truce or peace that was set up a little bit earlier. But I would just say that this whole situation, it just makes me say, and then how is it that after all these years, they still haven't found the person or persons who firebombed that house while he was sleeping with his wife and kids at 2:35 in the morning? Yeah, guys. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. Please share this amongst your friends. Remember, each one, reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.